Now we're going to hop over to the Harvard Extension Student Psychological Society. They have a very special guest here today. She is HES award-winning professor, Dr. Meyersburg. We're so happy to have you there. Yeah, watch that video. It's on the HES website. I was surprised her with her trophy in her classroom in the summer. It was so much fun.
I am honored to welcome Dr. Cynthia Meyersburg. Dr. Meyersburg earned her PhD at Harvard, and she is a lecturer at Harvard Extension School. She has also been a very important mentor for me personally, so I am delighted and thrilled to introduce her to you today.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Maya. Thank you. Okay, so let me make sure I can drive the slides. Great. Okay, so first, you might be wondering who I am. So my title is Lecturer in Extension, Harvard University, and what that actually means in English. I'm a lecturer for the Division of Continuing Education here at Harvard University. I really love what I do. You might be interested in some things I've done, so these slides will be available and the links will be up for you. So I've blogged for the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, trying to help veterans be able to succeed better at both in undergraduate and graduate institutions. I was a collaborator on the task force for terrorism and peace building for the International Association of Applied Psychology. I have been a consultant and an on-screen panel of experts person for an episode of the Curiosity series for the Discovery Channel, the Brainwashed episode. Let's see, and I've been interviewed by Big Picture Science, which is funded by SETI. Oh, people are coming, how nice. Which is funded by SETI and also available on NPR. I've got a link for that. And I also co-authored a brief guide to writing the psychology paper. So all of these things I've got links for, so if you're interested in them, you can take a look at them later. Okay. So mentoring and teaching are very important to me. I'm very proud that I won the inaugural, I was a co-recipient of the inaugural Best Mentor Award from the HES Spirit Awards. I was really honored by that. I am currently an Inclusive Practice Fellow, which is also a real honor to be part of the inaugural group of Inclusive Practice Fellows here at the university. Last semester, I earned a for my teaching last semester, I earned a commendation for distinguished teaching from the dean. When I was teaching Harvard for the Harvard College, I got a special commendation for extraordinary teaching during extraordinary times. And from the psychology department here at Harvard, I've had 7 teaching awards. So I take teaching and mentoring very seriously, and I care about my students. So I'm really thrilled. I'm really thrilled to be here with you today. So people sometimes ask what courses I teach. I will tell you these are ones I'm currently teaching. I teach clinical psychology, sometimes listed as applied clinical psychology. I teach the Pro Seminar, which is one of the courses for the ALM. I teach motivation. I'll be teaching that again next spring. I teach pseudoscience and mental health. And I also, in the autumn, will be teaching a class on grief, which I've also previously taught. I can't announce it yet because I don't have confirmation, but as soon as I do know it, I will be happy to share. I think I'm going to be announcing another class shortly. So I think there'll be a new one for next year. So if you've already had these and you'd like a different class with me, one's coming. Anyhow, I hope to see you in class. So I'd like to share some of my best advice that I think you'll benefit from. So here we go. So my first piece of advice is that you always want to cite the original source. In science, most of us don't make big money. The thing we ask for in return for our hard work is to be acknowledged for the work that we do. That's one reason to cite original sources. But another reason is that it, of course, gives the appearance of being academically rigorous, and the appearance is important as well. It matters what people think of you. But most importantly, it's the only way to be sure you actually get it right. This is also part of why you don't want to cite like a New York Times article or any other, it's a wonderful newspaper, but it's not who you want to cite for your scientific findings. If you see something interesting there, go back and trace it to the original research article, because otherwise you're just citing someone's interpretation of a piece of science rather than the science itself. It's really important that you get it right. Now, you have an amazing opportunity because you go to school here to use the best library, I would argue, possibly in the world. Library of Congress, also pretty fabulous, but without argument, this is one of the top 3 libraries in the whole world, and you have access to it. And you also have help for learning how to use it. So learn how to use our library. I've got a couple of links here for you. This will help you a great deal. You will find that the 2 librarians, you'll see them on one of these pages, who are particular experts helping extension students are amazing. They will help you learn how to use HOLIS, how to use PsycInfo, how to use PubMed, how to use Web of Science. These are tools you really need, and they will help you be sure that you actually know what you think you know. My next piece of advice is update what you think. When I was a graduate student here, I was in the McNally lab, and I'm very proud to have studied under Dr. McNally, and he's one of the Harvard professors. He's a full professor who has the distinction not only of being a full professor here, but it's very rare for someone to be tenured who comes in as junior faculty. About 95% of the people who historically have done that do not get tenured. He got tenured. He's an extraordinary educator, and he's really and truly committed to teaching. So he also teaches for you. So you have the opportunity to take classes from him, which I highly recommend. But I will say that having been his graduate student in his lab and earned my doctorate under him, one of the things I learned from him that I most value is that's really important to update what you think. When there are credible new data, be willing to update what you think you know. Science is iterative. Over time, truth is going to accrue, but that doesn't mean there's never a mistake or something that's unclear or something that needs clarification or something we've got wrong. So when new data come out, look at it, see if it's credible, read it, and be eager to say if you think you were wrong. So I've got an example here of that where Dr. McNally cited himself as having been wrong and updated why he was wrong about something and what the actual answer is. I can't tell you how much I admire that. Think like a clinician and think like a researcher. It's essential for researchers to think like clinicians, because otherwise we could engage in research that harms people without thinking about the well-being of our participants. We need to think about the well-being of our participants. However, something that gets missed sometimes is it's equally important for not only does a researcher need to think like a clinician, but a clinician needs to think like a researcher. We need to demand that the categories that we use, the diagnostic criteria, that they're valid. We need to demand that the measures we're using to assess are valid. We need to demand that the treatments we use actually benefit our patients. And that's essential. So I won't spend too much time on it right now, but I've got up here for you some information about the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, which was a shocking and sad failure in this value, and the Belmont report, which came after, which is why we have IRBs to help us make sure we don't harm our participants. And then on the other side, I've got a couple of resources, and there are many others you could look at to help us think about mental illness and its treatment using a scientific lens to make sure that we are demanding that our treatments work and that what we're doing actually helps people. So beware of assumptions, cognitive biases, and logical fallacies. We all are prone to these, but we can work to do better. People who've had me in class may have seen me show Broca, who was a very famous, he's the one who discovered Broca's speech aphasia, the area of speech, the area of the brain associated with being able to produce speech. He was an incredibly talented and dedicated scientist. But he was also raised in Europe at a time when he was very influenced by Darwin and other ideas that may have biased, they did bias how he saw the world. And so he also did research that we now know was mistaken. If it could happen to Broca, if he could make mistaken assumptions based on biases he wasn't aware he had, if it could happen to him, it can happen to you and it can happen to me. So we need to be really careful about it. So examine what you think, develop your critical thinking skills, work on debiasing whenever possible. And so I've got some links I've got a link for you and some articles cited that I think might be good places to start. But if you're really excited about this, you might want to come see me in pseudoscience. Even if a diagnosis is incorrect, the suffering is real. So although I question some diagnostic categories, I don't think the DSM has it right on dissociative identity disorder. And certainly satanic ritual abuse is not held up as a diagnosis. Even though that's the case, another person coming, that doesn't mean that the people who are diagnosed with these things, the people who are hurting, that their suffering wasn't real. Their suffering is real. And it's important that we figure out what's going on so that we can develop treatments and approaches that actually help people and reduce their suffering. It's not their fault if we've got it wrong in some way. So we need to work really hard to make sure that that we get that right, that we aren't making mistakes there. But when we do it, we need to remember that we need to think about that these are real people with real suffering and hold on to our compassion. Similarly, we need to work to reduce mental illness stigma. Everyone listening to this, every single one of you knows someone, cares about someone who is living with mental illness. It is ubiquitous. We all are touched by it directly or indirectly. The stigma of mental illness is powerful, and it can cause harms above and beyond the illness's symptoms themselves. And that stigma can even extend to family members, to other loved ones. It's really painful. It's bad enough that we have to deal with mental illness. We don't need to stigmatize it on top of that. So I suspect I'm preaching to the choir here, but I'm charging you, please work to reduce mental illness stigma. Stephen Hinshaw has done some amazing work on this. He has a book, The Mark of Shame, Stigma of Mental Illness. And he also has written many articles, which I've cited, I hope you'll be citing, that address the issues of mental illness stigma. And also another good place to start, if you're trying to explain to people why this is important, you might want to look at Ellen Sacks's TED Talk, A Tale of Mental Illness, and I've got a link for that for you right there. Sleep matters. You're students, you're busy, you multitask. I understand that. But you need to sleep. Memory consolidation occurs during sleep. Lack of sleep can be a causal and a maintaining factor in mental health issues. Lack of sleep can be related to being in accidents. It can be related to being more at risk for many health consequences that are quite negative, including dying, right? So lack of sleep, we all eventually die, but I mean dying in the near term. Sleep matters. You need to get sleep. Do not pull all-nighters. Give yourself what you need to be able to be well. And that is actually respecting your body and giving it the sleep your body needs. You will do better work. You will end up in a better place. You will regulate your emotions better. Sleep matters. I often have students whom I've advised over the years who really are worried and agonizing over finding the best career. Should I do this or that, this or that, or this or that or that? And they agonize and they spend so much time in turmoil over this. Don't do that. There's more than one career that can help you achieve a meaningful and successful life. Odds are there is not a best choice. There are several good choices. So your job is to identify among many possibilities, just one that you think might be good for you. And you can try it. And if it's not good, try something else. Instead of worrying about finding the best of something, imagine you're sitting in a restaurant that serves only desserts. You've done the eating of the meal. You arrive there. All you have to pick is the dessert. You've done the preparation. What you have to do now is choose from among possibilities for what to do next. Maybe you want the creme brulee. Maybe you want the chocolate lava cake. Maybe it's the blueberry cheesecake. It doesn't matter. You don't have to find the best one on the menu. You just have to find one you like. And if you don't like the first one, send it back, order something else, change careers. Life is relatively long, certainly compared to how it was historically. Most of us have more than one career. Even if you decide you want to change it later, it's perfectly fine. So don't waste your time agonizing. Pick one, try it. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind later if you want to. Now that I've said that, some of you are thinking about grad school. So a mistake that I see students make that I hope none of you will make is thinking that a personal statement isn't actually what they say it is, which is a personal statement. It's not a personal statement. Personal statements are for marketing yourself. If you decide to apply to a PhD, a PsyD, an MSW, any other graduate program, do not be deceived by the personal statement. It is not really a personal statement. It's a marketing tool. Do not treat it like a confessional, nor a diary entry. Okay? You are telling them the best things about you so that they want to meet you. You're telling them what's interesting and compelling about you and what your ideas are, so that they think, wow, this would be a great person to have in my lab, in my institution, doing the sort of work I do, representing me in my field as someone I've taught. So bear that in mind as you write your personal statements. Be kind. When in doubt, and really all of the time, be kind. I don't have a citation for that one, but it's probably the most important one. Do not fall prey to doomism. The tragedies of the world get far, far, far more attention than the triumphs. There's plenty of reason for hope. If you're looking for just a few things to perk you up, I've got some links there for some things I think you'll be excited about. And also I'll say you might want to read Professor Pinker's The Better Angels of Our Nature. Don't be deceived into thinking that things are hopeless. They aren't. They really aren't. The fact you're taking classes here makes me think you don't think they're hopeless anyhow. But just in case, it's hard sometimes. We're barraged in the news. We're barraged online. And it makes it hard not to take a fatalistic attitude that things are terrible, the gloom and doom and despair everywhere, and everything's horrible, and the world's terrible, and it's never going to be better. It makes it easy to be depressed. Don't believe it. It's not true. Yes, there are real problems. Yes, there is war. Yes, there are genocides. Yes, there are terrible things happening in the world. There always have been. But there are also great efforts and vast improvements that have happened if you look at it with a long view. And I think there's some really exciting ones ahead. So be part of those. Give yourself the joy of looking forward to those and being part of those. Don't let the thought that things can't be perfect get in the way of doing everything you can. In clinical psychology, we teach that you fix everything you can fix, and usually, and in our world, if we fix everything we can fix, I think we'll be able to live with what the problems are. Or maybe the generation after us, after you really, maybe they'll pick up wherever that leaves off. It's not yours to have to finish the work, but it's also not okay to walk away from it. And don't let anyone persuade you that there aren't reasons to be happy. So the examples I picked here, I think you'll be so excited about them. So maybe, I don't know if there's going to be a discussion board for this. Will there be a discussion board later? So if there's a discussion board later, I would really love to hear what you think about this book and these three links. So I'd love to hear what you think. Next, I want to talk about when things are really hard. And if this resonates for you, you might want to come to my grief class. But Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust. He was in the camps. And in his 1946 book, Man's Search for Meaning, he wrote, excuse me there, he wrote, when we're no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. There may be a time in your life when it will help you to embrace that challenge. So, I've got a little link there for a TED Talk that they've made based on a recording of him, but I want you to think about that. There may be times in life when things are really tough. Everyone's going to have that at times. When it is, if you can't change it, change you. And finally, my last piece, my 13th and final piece of advice for you is build lasting friendships. I attended a very similar program to Harvard Extension before I got my doctorate. I probably should have started by telling you that. But when I was an undergraduate, I went to Emory University and I studied English literature. Then I got out and I realized I wanted to be in psychology. So I picked up a master's degree, a terminal master's degree from a part-time program that Johns Hopkins had at the time. They don't have that particular one anymore, but they do have other ones. It was very similar to the program you are in. And it opened the doors I needed opened. It got me prepared so that I could come here. But I also made friends there. And one particular one friend who TAs for me now, I've been friends with now most of my life. Right? So build lasting friendships. Take the time to make friends. Don't consider your classmates your competitors. Consider them your future colleagues, your contacts, your future friends. Take the time to make friends and maintain your social network. You will live longer and happier if you do that. So I will quote from William James. Certain persons do exist with an enormous capacity for friendship and for taking delight in other people's lives. Such persons know more of truth than if their hearts were not so big. Give yourself that joy of having people who are important to you. And the extension school is an amazing place for you to make those friends, because here are other people who were coming out of a pandemic. Times have been tough. Here you are learning, growing, trying to plan for a better tomorrow. These are your people. Find friends among them, which brings me to my last slide. So why should you join this organization? Well, there are going to be exciting and informative programs. There'll be networking opportunities. There'll be leadership development. You'll have an opportunity to share your insights and contribute to the community. But if you ask me, the best reason to join, to be among like-minded people and have an opportunity to build friendships with them. So welcome to Harvard Extension School Students Psychological Society. I hope you will join. And right there is a QR code so you can do it. So have a great day.
Dr. Meyersburg, maybe she'll be in the running for a second annual HES award. I don't know. Keep our fingers crossed for it. Yeah, that was really great. Like, I feel lighter. I think that's part of the point, right? All the Kimia and this team have done amazing. Like, literally, there's a Facebook and Instagram, a website. I mean, you can find the information. Kimia, can you put all the links in the chat? Perfect.